Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Fed Up, your no BS nutrition podcast. I'm your host, Kayla Marie, certified personal trainer and nutrition specialist, working with clients since 2014. After swimming up diet culture's bullshit stream for so many years, I am fed the absolute up with how miserable it's making people feel when we are supposed to be getting healthier. This podcast is here to help you gain your sanity back so you can stop yo-yoing once and for all and finally learn how to trust yourself so you can enjoy food again without fear or shame while still getting to your health goals. My aim is to teach you how to detect the BS in not just the food and diet industries, but in all realms of life, because I know that, like me, we are all just a little fed up. So without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. Alrighty, welcome on back to another episode. Thank you so much for being here. Today we are talking about the most important meal of the day. Or is it? Is breakfast, what they've always told us, the most important meal of your day? Short answer, in my opinion, and based on the evidence we have for our modern lifestyles, yes. Yes, it is the most important meal of the day. And we're going to get into it today. So first things first, I want to talk about what is considered breakfast. I'll give you some examples of a balanced, healthy breakfast, and I'll include some more specific examples at the end. And then we're also going to talk about why you should be eating breakfast, even if you are not particularly hungry right away. And although evolutionarily speaking, humans probably did a lot more fasting than we did breakfast eating, and there is a bit of a dilemma of what the difference would be between fasting intentionally and getting all the benefits from that and restricting and binging yourself into these cycles of, not eating food and then eating a lot of food. What is really the difference, right, between a feeding window and a binge? So we're going to talk about that a little bit. And then I really want to emphasize how eating breakfast is going to help you lose some weight, perform better at work, manage your stress and emotions better, which means you're going to be managing your relationships better and your friendships. You're going to be able to think better, and it'll help you snack and binge less, especially later on. So a lot of people don't realize your late night snacking might be associated with how much energy you did or didn't give yourself early on in the day. So let's get into it, shall we? First things first, I know there are a lot of people who are going to say, because I've heard it for years, but I'm just not hungry in the morning. Well, duh. Let me explain why you are not hungry, because ghrelin is your appetite or your hunger hormone. It is going to be relatively low because of your circadian rhythm, hormones, all that stuff. It's going to be lowest in the morning, highest in the evening. This is pretty normal if you live in a human body. So not being hungry in the morning doesn't mean you have a different metabolism. It just means you have a normal metabolism. And if you drink coffee is an appetite suppressant, so that doesn't help. And if you think about it, waking up hungry was probably pretty painful for like an animal to do because they've got to spend the day going out and hunting, especially if you're, not nocturnal. You go out during the day to forage and hunt. So as humans were evolving, we woke up with the sun, and then it took us maybe a couple of hours, and we had to work to go find our food, which we're going to talk about later. So it's normal for hunger to increase gradually over the course of the day. And that's why when you don't eat breakfast, you might be driven to overeat later on in the day. And that is the main key point I want to bring to you if this is relevant. There are some people who are going to be fine without eating breakfast. They're not overweight. They don't struggle with binging. They don't struggle with overeating later in the day. They eat 3 or 2, whatever, normal balanced meals. This episode's not for you, okay? Fine, go have your, lunchtime as your breakfast, and then you have dinner and you're a happy little clam. All the power to you. But this episode is for the people who maybe you're skipping breakfast. Maybe you're not hungry first thing, but then you're like so hungry later on in the day. Or maybe, again, you don't notice that you're hungry, but you end up snacking mindlessly. Or once you start, you can't stop, right? So there are lots of physiological things going on, mental things that are going on, but also your hormones are going to be driving you to eat or find food because that's how you stay alive. So when you don't feed yourself first thing in the morning, the first thing that's going to happen is over the course of the day, that hunger and that drive for food increases. It makes it a lot harder to curb your cravings, deal with your impulses, manage your stress and emotions, things like that, right? You get irritable, you get hangry. If you're not a morning person, maybe you just need to eat breakfast. Okay, just saying. So let's consider why the rest of the day may be impacted. When you do good all day, right? Maybe you have a small salad for lunch, or you're on a diet, whatever it may be, you put a bunch of restrictions in place. It's at night you have no willpower, right? Or you're again, like you do really well during the day, or you think you do because you had like a healthy, quote unquote, an egg with your coffee. And then you had like a chicken salad for lunch. And then dinner, you had like a normal dinner or like a soup. And then it's like later that you end up, binging snacks out of your pantry or door dashing something. Or again, maybe you do really well throughout the week and then it's the weekend that you just overindulge. So not only are your hormones against you, right? We talked about that ghrelin, that appetite increases over time, but also you have what we call ego depletion. This is where your decision making and your willpower skills deplete over time. You wake up with all the motivation in the world, and by the end of the day, you have none, especially if you've made a lot of decisions or you're studying or you've spent a lot of mental power doing something or not. Sometimes, sedentary begets sedentary in the same way movement begets movement. If you've done nothing all day, you're going to keep wanting to do nothing. So not only are your hormones telling you to eat more food, but your hormones in your brain and everything else, your cognitive power is telling you to eat like high energy, high sugar, high fatty, carby foods that you're just like having this craving for because one, you have no impulse control. Two, you're hangry. And three, your hunger response is telling you to get energy now or we're going to die, right? That's what we're doing. So in the morning, you might not be hungry because cortisol is actually what wakes us up. So your cortisol is going to rise a little bit in the morning. So you might perceive a lack of hunger at first, but we know high cortisol over time, chronically high cortisol, that's your stress hormone, right? That is not necessarily a good thing because that does increase your ghrelin appetite response over time. So if you are a stressed little bunny, maybe you're even getting poor sleep, that also is going to impact how hungry you are the next day. So sometimes working on your sleep, working on those other things can help curb the cravings, curb the, need for like fast food or like, how do I just stop binging chocolate? Sometimes you've got to look on the, stress and sleep and recovery side of things. Calorie restriction, dieting, trying to lose weight is also a stressor. Even though like we want to do it if we're trying to lose weight, we also need to acknowledge that your body's going to fight everything in its power against you from losing weight because to it, you are dying if you are losing weight. Okay? So here's the thing. While it might be true that we all have different bodies, it's more so true that we have different preferences. So again, even if you're feeling like, well, I'm not really hungry in the morning, this is really going to depend now on like, okay, well, what does the rest of the day look like for you? Do you end up starving by lunch that you binge or you have no impulse control? Or again, someone brings in something to the office and you can't control it. You just have like 10 cupcakes all of a sudden. Or are you someone who's like, oh no, I'm just like genuinely not hungry until like 11 or 12. And then I have like a decent lunch and then I don't think about food and I'm chilling. I'm not talking to you. Okay. I am talking to the people who maybe you don't even realize you're hungry, but you're getting moody, you're getting irritable, you're getting shaky or fatigued, or maybe you just need to do an experiment for a little bit because something for me is like, I didn't notice how much better I do when I eat breakfast and how much worse I do when I don't. Or like if I have a meltdown and I'm having this like emotional crisis and then I realize like, wait, I'm sleep deprived, I'm food deprived. Like, of course I'm emotional. So hanger is a real freaking thing. And again, some stress is good for us, but it is how we adapt and recover from that stress that is even better for us. So let me talk about that for a moment. Humans are animals, and animals are typically required to work for food. It's essential for our health to move and hunt and look for berries, right? To hunt and forage, as humans have always done. They actually show about a 10% decrease brain volume in humans that has occurred over the past 10,000 years. And they think that it might have to do with the start of agriculture. Like, we've self-domesticated, and they have studied like domestication of animals, of course, and you can even find decreases of brain volume in domesticated cats, dogs, horses, pigs, like domesticated farm animals versus wild. They have different cognitive development that happens. It's phenomenal. So they also assume maybe we've kind of done that to ourselves because we can provide and distribute food with the majority of us not having to work for it. And if you combine that with the last 150, 200 years, nope, not even that. Let's say the last 70 years, when people have become way more sedentary. It's like office work became a huge thing. We're going to see probably even more of a cognitive decline that we already are seeing. And they say that part of that is like we're not stressing out our brains enough to go and achieve and acquire food. So what happens is we end up not having to think about it, not having to really again, expend energy for it. And they're noticing like our hippocampus is shrinking. Like, anyway, Alzheimer's is associated with this. It's pretty intense. So I do want to talk really quick too about this dilemma between like, okay, you just said to eat breakfast every, whatever, like eat breakfast every morning within a certain amount of time. But yeah, you also just said to like work hard and attain our food, and that like humans survived primarily off of, fasting and like not having like an abundance of food all the time. The thing is, modern day does not necessarily follow the same rules as our ancestors being hunters and foragers, right? Like, we have the same metabolism that they did, meaning we should be working and moving and hunting for our food, and we're not. So we're seeing that. And then I have to ask, okay, well, like, the realistic solution is not to tell my clients to go hunt for their food. So how do we apply this modern day, right? So let's back up a little bit to when your parents told you to finish your plate, then you can have dessert. Drive-thrus are open now 24/7. You can go to grocery markets now, like superstores. You can buy in bulk. That was never a thing before. In certain countries, you still have to go to the markets every day to get like fresh food because they don't sell things in bulk, or you can't get a bunch of like frozen fish, right? So a lot of times, like, American culture is what I'm referring to, mind you. So again, drive-thrus are open 24/7. We're driving our cars everywhere, depending on the city that you live in. Maybe in New York, you're walking a little bit more, but regardless, there is food on every single street corner, right? We also have indoor light. We can eat late at night. We are bombarded with the high energy, high palatable foods, meaning it tastes real, real good. It's not just like finding nuts and berries. Like, those probably tasted like meh. Like, our food today, due to agriculture and food processing and stuff, tastes so freaking good. It's rotting our teeth. And our brains, like, love it. So it's not that like sugar's addicting. It's the fact that our food tastes so much better than it ever has in the history of ever. So that being said, our evolutionary history has us intermittent fasting, whether for hours, for days. Food was not available. And then we had to work for it. We had to exert physical energy for it. And then when we got it, it was nutritionally dense. It was meat, fish, nuts, berries, right? It was natural, quote unquote, food that is packed with fiber and protein. And now we have starbursts. So when you look at the cognitive decline that's happening, they're associating it with a lot of different things. And part of that is the domestication of food. We don't have to go and find it anymore. So I'm mostly against intermittent fasting because it encourages a restrictive and binging cycle for a lot of people. And it's not magic, all right? So if you intermittent fast, it's not like all of a sudden your metabolism like goes into overdrive and you burn fat only. Like, same thing with keto. Like, your body adapted to have ketones in states of famine and stress, which was really great for our brain development. It provides a little bit of stress. You have to get like extra, work to get fuel to your brain, which is good for us. But over long term, we don't want to be doing that because then you actually are like starving yourself, right? And we tend to not do so intentionally. We tend to just not eat. And it's not like when we are eating, it's like the most nutritionally dense food. So when I do encourage intermittent fasting, typically it's with somebody who's already kind of eating this way and they do eat a pretty like nutrient dense Mediterranean style food because it's fiber, protein, unsaturated fats. Like it's really a healthy, food option. Whereas I've had clients do like alternate day fasting and they maintain their weight and they're happy little clams, but they're just like eating whatever they want and they're like almost not binging, but they're just like, oh yeah, I just have like normal meals and, sometimes it's a burger, sometimes it's tacos, sometimes it's a salad. So they're eating a normal food. That is probably pretty healthy versus somebody who is like purposefully starving themselves and then they're binging out of control, too big of portions. It's all unhealthy food. Like again, there are different ways of doing this. And for the most part, people who skip breakfast unintentionally are going to end up with these bigger issues later on. So when I talk about breakfast, I'm talking about eating within 1 to 2 hours of waking. If you're eating breakfast food at like noon and you've been awake for 5 hours, that is now lunch. Break the fast, right, of sleeping and not eating, of our rest. When our glucose is low, we want a balanced breakfast that includes carbohydrates for the glucose to go to our brain. Brain's only fuel is glucose and give you the energy that we need for cognitive work. Plus, you want some protein and fat to help slow down that glucose release so you have a steady stream of energy to your brain and your cells over the next few hours, not a huge insulin spike and then a drop. When you have naked carbs or carbs that are just like by themselves, you have nothing to slow down that digestion. You have this huge insulin response, and then you have this crash, right? And so you're hungry an hour later. So you also need to make sure that you're eating enough calories. 400 to 600 calories is a full meal. If you're having like 100-calorie breakfasts, that's a tiny little baby snack, okay? You're going to be hungry an hour later. When you eat this breakfast, you are able to actually get through your freaking work meetings without rolling your eyes at your boss. You're able to provide creative energy. You're able to focus. You're able to actually get up and move your body more because you give it energy. When you don't do that, sedentary begets sedentary. You have no energy to move. You have no willpower to go out for a walk at lunchtime, right? So there's this trail effect or this cascade effect that happens when you are low on energy, you're low in mood, you're low on concentration, you're low in movement, and then now by lunchtime you're starving and you're hangry. And again, we can picture it, right? So when you eat breakfast in modern day, the studies that we have done on children and adults who eat breakfast have lower rates of obesity and diabetes. And they're able to make better decisions later so they don't snack late at night. Late night snacking or late night eating, and again, it's not necessarily like, oh, if you eat after 9 p.m., it's just like we're not supposed to be eating at midnight. Like humans are not hunting and eating at midnight, okay? So when they've studied this, like late night eating is associated with a higher ghrelin response. You are more hungry in the morning. Lower leptin response. Leptin is like your how fat am I hormone. It is your body's regulation of long-term fat stores. So that becomes dysregulated. You also are shown to move less the next day. Your body temperature decreases, which is interesting. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff metabolically that happens when you're eating late at night, particularly, again, like unstructured meals. When you have to eat late at night, you got to eat late at night. I'm not saying to skip dinner because you worked late, okay? There is also a lot of research that's been done on night shift workers or people with jet lag or people that work late at night, right? And again, it's not good for us. We are not nocturnal animals. We are sun up to sundown. Anyway, When you are late night snacking, now you're eating, you're extra hungry in the morning, but you don't eat because you feel bad for eating late at night and you're not used to it. We can also kind of ignore our hunger in the morning or at any point, and we can get it to go away. So if you don't eat, your ghrelin response is like, okay, cool, it's not ready, time for food. I'm going to chill for a minute. When you start eating regularly at like a certain amount of time, your body does learn that in its circadian rhythm, and it will start to release ghrelin around those structured expected food times. So as you start eating breakfast, if you're not used to it, you're like, oh man, now I wake up extra hungry. Yeah, because your ghrelin is like, yeah, we're getting food, we're ready for it. It might take a few weeks to kind of adjust to this. But when you start to kind of implement structured meals throughout your day, starting with breakfast, it decreases that late night snacking, and you like offset those metabolic changes that are happening without even you realizing it, right? So, something I want to also mention is when we have this excessive energy intake, meaning we are overeating food because we have an abundance of food and we have sedentary lifestyles. They're showing not only is it obesity, but again, increased rates of Alzheimer's and dementia and insulin resistance, which is diabetes. And they're showing like youth's brain development is impaired. So there is a lot more at stake here than just, oh, eat breakfast because it's good for you. It's definitely something that has this cascading effect for some people that will help you reduce your overall energy intake. That's what we mean too as coaches when we say eat more to eat less. You're not in starvation mode. If you're actually starving, you're going to lose weight because that's what happens. But typically, if you're just kind of training yourself to be starving most of the day, you are increasing your stress, increasing your cortisol, which increases your hunger. And now you're overeating at night. Like, again, you're moody, you're getting road rage, you're unable to stand the sound of your baby crying all of a sudden because you're not feeding yourself. Again, if this doesn't apply to you, skip to the next episode, okay? But I'm hoping that this reaches people who are, wait a second, maybe I should start eating breakfast because I notice, yeah, later on in the day, I have no impulse control. I'm getting in fights with my spouses all the time. Like I have a client who she's kind of funny. She like decreased her caffeine intake. And I've noticed she's complaining about her husband less. They've been getting in fights a lot less. I don't even know if she's noticed this, but I have. So I might bring it up next couple of weeks if it keeps it up. So moving on here. When we look at exercise and intermittent fasting, both are shown to have similar cognitive benefits. Again, it's not because intermittent fasting is like, it's magical to eat, skip breakfast and eat until 2 p.m. Again, there's this demand for physical exertion while you're in a fasted state that forces your body to adapt to the stress. This is how we evolved to become the top of the world, right? The top of the animal kingdom, some people would say. They have done these little studies in rodents that looked at like neural plasticity, and that's how much like our brain changes from, stress resilience and environmental factors, all of those things. And they show that that the rats that have to like remember previously traveled routes to get to a food source and they're running to get to the food source, like there's a combination in a physical seeking of food that is really important for increased density of dendritic spines in the hippocampal area, which is just like, again, your hippocampus is what shrinks with like Alzheimer's, dementia, even like bipolar and depression. So that is the part of your brain that keeps you cognitively functioning and able to have motor control and able to think about problems and create spatial awareness and have memory retention. Like being able to like run and seek food is an essential part of our survival. And we don't do that anymore. So we have to find ways to be a little more intentional about it. Or we have to realize that in modern day world, we have this abundance of food and we have to learn how to manage it. And for most people, just simply restricting themselves, telling themselves, don't eat till 2 p.m., don't eat till 2 p.m., they're only going to binge at 2 p.m. Or again, maybe they do it for a while, but they're getting shaky. They're not able to work out. They're moving a lot less. They're, having meltdowns at work because a customer said something to them and now they're like extra sensitive because again, like you're not somebody who needs to go so long without eating. And it's okay that we don't eat the same exact ways as our hunter-gatherer ancestors did because guess what? We're not living the same lifestyle that they are. We're just not. Unless you are. That would be weird if you're listening to this podcast if you were. But let's just say that when you have nutrient-dense food within portion control, first thing in the morning, and then maybe around lunchtime, midday, and then maybe like around the evening, around like sundown, unless you live in Montana during the summertime and sunset is not until 10 p.m., maybe a little earlier. But I don't know, maybe there's something to that too. Like if the sun is up until 10 p.m., does that mean that we're okay eating dinner at like 9:30? I don't know, okay? I don't know. I don't care that much about it to get so nitpicky about it because I also work late nights sometimes. And guess what? I'm having dinner at 1 a.m. I am because I'm going to be hungry. But that doesn't mean it's ideal. All right. And sometimes you just can't live an ideal life and it's going to be fine. Anyway, moving on. Eat breakfast. It's going to help you have more mood and appetite regulation. It's going to help curb your impulses and your cravings because you're not going to be demanding high energy, high calorie, high sugar foods now. It's going to make it easier to not order DoorDash or get takeout or go through the drive-thru because you're actually like remaining full until lunchtime or until your next meal. You also are going to help your insulin and your ghrelin and your hormones develop a circadian rhythm that's going to help stabilize over time. Again, it doesn't just happen because you ate breakfast today. It happens over the course of a couple of weeks. And you're going to notice that you have more energy. You have more, better, I don't know, all the things I just mentioned. I'm not going to repeat myself. And you're going to notice that some people will add breakfast and then they gain more weight. And maybe for them, it's because you just added a 500-calorie breakfast, but you didn't change anything else about what you're eating. So again, we still do have to manage and be conscientious of what we're putting in our body, getting the right calories and protein and all that good stuff, regardless of what your goal is, right? You can kind of adjust it to that. But I find that most people who are struggling with those late night binges or just being consistent or mood regulation, or if you're neurodivergent at all, like being unfueled is like the worst thing for your symptoms. And even if you have something that you were born with, like it's not like, you not eating regularly caused your ADHD, but it's going to trigger all those symptoms and make it way harder for yourself to manage those ADHD symptoms or whatever it may be. Your autism is going to be heightened sensory experience, heightened meltdowns, heightened whatever it may be, like the symptoms that you really struggle with that are mood regulation and cognitive regulation and things like that are going to be impaired. So give your body the glucose it needs. Alrighty. And it's okay to be hungry sometimes, especially if you are trying to lose weight. If you are in a little bit of a caloric restriction, it's okay to not eat immediately as soon as you feel your hunger pains. But we talk about a hunger scale being from 1 to 10. 1 being like you're about to pass out. You are hungry. It's almost painful, but like you're almost not hungry anymore. You're just sick. A 5 is like you're neither hungry, neither full. Maybe you ate about an hour ago, right? Like you're not like a distended stomach or anything like that. A 9 is going to be like, man, I have to unbutton my pants. Like I am uncomfortably full. Okay. So when we wake up, we're probably about maybe a 4 or a 5. We're like not hungry, not full. You're just kind of chilling. But guess what? As soon as your ghrelin starts to increase, as soon as your day goes on, as soon as your coffee starts to wear off, or if you don't drink coffee, now your hunger has dropped to a 3 pretty quickly, where that's when your stomach starts growling. It's like your first thought of food. But if you ignore that number 3, your ghrelin response is like, okay, cool, I'll take a back seat. But you're going to drop to a 2 really quick. And a 2 is like, man, I'm moody. I'm getting like, this is so hard. I'm getting road rage. People are getting on my nerves. You might even be getting like a little bit lightheaded or you get a headache. And then a number 2 and a number 1, again, you're getting like shaky, nauseous. You might feel like you want to pass out. So don't let yourself go from a wake up at 4 to a 2 or a 1 within 3 to 4 hours because you're like, well, I don't feel hungry now. Eat even though you're not particularly hungry at a level 4 or 5. Maybe split your breakfast up into 2. I do that sometimes. Maybe when I wake up, I have my, Greek yogurt bowl because that's a little bit easier for me to eat with some fruit and this, that, and the other. And then I have like the eggs and toast a little bit later. I'm going to have a second breakfast. You can hobbit like that if you want. Shout out to anybody who gets that reference. So if you are, again, ignoring your hunger cues, you're stressed out about food, you're thinking about food all the time, then you're snacking out of the bag, you're snacking mindlessly, abnormal times, late at night, you tend to go on diets, you tend to go through periods of like being really good and then falling off. You're hungry all day, and then as soon as you get to eat, you like have zero self-control over it. Like, those are all symptoms that maybe you need to be eating breakfast. Okie dokie. So I am somebody who I can go all day without eating, like I said, but when I do eat, I notice I have so much more energy to actually just run my errands or get like cognitive work done on building programs or doing a podcast or whatever it may be. I'm much more creative in that aspect. I'm able to actually make myself a lunch rather than, again, if I skip breakfast, a lot of times I'll skip lunch. I'm able to work out in the mid-morning, which I prefer my workouts around like 10:30ish, and I actually have energy to do sets and hit weights, and I don't get like shaky and lightheaded and feel dizzy or just feel like, man, why can't I do this? Like, I have to drudge myself through a workout and be like, okay, I'll eat afterwards. And then all of a sudden my stomach's growling like in the middle of a workout. So I try to prevent that from happening, but not always. And I like go to work out fasted. But I've noticed a huge difference for me because I don't work out first thing as soon as I wake up. If you're somebody who wakes up at 5:30 in the morning and then you go and work out for an hour, then you have breakfast, you're probably fine. Again, you're still like eating within 2 hours of waking up. Again, I'm not talking to you. So here's some examples that I love lately. You get some whole wheat or 12 grain toast, like a high seed, high grain with like 5 to 10 grams of protein or 3-ish plus grams of fiber per slice. You slap some avocado in there, some goat cheese, some cottage cheese, whatever it is, some tomatoes, some balsamic glaze, some red pepper flakes. With the avocado, like on half an avocado, it's like 4 or 5 grams of fiber. So sorry, it's so basic, but avocado toast is a great breakfast. You might want some Greek yogurt, not your Yoplait because it doesn't have any protein. Greek yogurt's going to have protein. You add some fruit, whatever that may be. You put on some low sugar granola or some sliced almonds or some nuts or some seeds or something like that. Or a protein shake I usually blend it with ice, fruit, yogurt, some milk or water, some chia seeds or flax seeds. You can have some old-fashioned oats with chia seeds and fruit, add some peanut butter, whatever. I usually use whole milk for the extra protein and fat, but like you can use water if you're trying to like watch some calories. And then like 2 eggs as well with that because, again, a bowl of oatmeal might actually not fill you up. Eggs, of course, are a good option. Include some toast, include some color like fruit or spinach and tomatoes. Have more than 1 or 2 eggs. Have like 3 or 4. Or have 2 eggs plus something else with protein because 2 eggs is only like 12 grams of protein. Or you can just like start small. If you're like, I cannot fathom cooking a big breakfast or eating a big breakfast, maybe it's just a protein bar or a Cliff Bar. Maybe it's just a banana with a scoop of peanut butter for now. Or again, break up your breakfast into 2. I like to do that. Have something with your coffee and then have something a little bit bigger later on. There are so many options to make sure that you're getting some protein, some fiber, some carbs. You want all 3, again, to slow down the glucose absorption, but you want carbs in the morning. You want that brain fuel. So that's what I mean by a balanced breakfast is you have all of those components. If you're, again, unsure what's a protein, what's a carb, what's a fat, definitely DM me. We can talk about that. But learning those basics and learning how to like mix and match and pick and choose, like choosing those full balanced meals is going to help you sustain your nutrition and actually get all the energy that you need, lose some weight because you're not just like binging mindfully, rather than like skipping breakfast, trying to eat as little as possible, trying to eat as clean as possible, right? Then you just end up falling off the wagon every week. So we're trying to prevent that. And one of the ways is by eating your freaking breakfast. So I'll get off my soapbox. Follow me on Instagram as I'm posting a lot of my breakfasts because this podcast is way more for me than for you because I'm in a phase, again, where I am not eating breakfast right now and it is affecting my performance, affecting my mood, It's not good. I don't like it. I don't like feeling this way. So my mission is to be eating breakfast every day, and I'm bringing you along with me. So hope this helps. Love y'all. I will chat with you next week. Bye. Thanks so much for being here, friends. If you enjoyed this episode, please screenshot and tag me over on Instagram or leave a 5-star review wherever you are listening from. Your support means the world to me and only helps me get the No BS news out to more people. If you're interested in working with me in nutrition or personal training, check out my programs and courses on my website at kaylamariefitness.com and on Instagram at kaylamarie_fit. See you next week.